going to a fucking trophy store. Like, yeah, I want to order 35 of these, and can you, engrave them all with each kid's name? And nobody, you can't blame a bunch of kids for getting trophies. They didn't give them to themselves. You know what I mean? It's the parents who initiated that kind of thinking that everything is perfectly fair all the time, and there's no such thing as healthy competition because all competition is evil.
I'm not sure how we can have, like, people running around all over the place suggesting, as I was saying earlier, that people like the religious fanatics who are going to claim that there's some devil pulling the strings and manipulating everybody, and then, the conspiracy theorists who think everything's a fucking conspiracy, especially Greta Thunberg, apparently.
Yeah, she's a big conspiracy, because everything is, yeah.
But nobody seems to be even so much as considering addressing the actual, plot that is directly in front of them, obviously, is that these fucking factors do not pop up from out of nowhere. They were presented by somebody, by entire generations of people.
Yeah.
They were readily accepted, and they were allotted for, afforded by, and I mean, anybody that's paying attention can foresee these consequences. They're easy spots. Every fucking one of them.
But there's so much time in between the start and the cause and the effect that people lose that sense of the cause and the effect because the timeline is so long. It takes a long time for these effects to kind of start taking root. And when it comes to actual behavioral stuff and psychological issues that people then just start blaming, little kids for receiving trophies instead of blaming the parents for giving them to them. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird.
There are several factors that play into that. Obviously, they're not going to want to admit to having been at fault in this regard. They want to blame somebody else. That's the point,
though. Nobody is going to admit that they're at fault in any capacity.
Right.
Now, especially now, when you can just make a fake profile and go on Twitter and say whatever you want. And
right, and what is going to enhance this, degradation of our ability to accurately predict things, to have, an applicable foresight in any convention, is going to be the extreme reduction of our very attention span, our ability to be attentive, which is coming apparently from, I don't know, maybe the internet just illuminated this, but I'm pretty sure when I was a kid, people were able to, read books and stuff. That wasn't a big issue for them. They didn't have so much difficulty, actually reading something or being interested or invested in something longer than, 6 minutes or so.
That read, I hope, I would think.
Anybody who's watching this video right now, especially after how fucking whack I did the intro, and mind you, I will go ahead and admit that I am at fault here for various consequences that may span long into the future should things not turn out the way that we kind of need for them to. If I fuck that up, I'm particularly at fault for all of it, and that's gonna be one of the reasons I feel like shit about it right now, because I do have the foresight to foresee the consequences that are likely to transpire. But people were able to pay attention to things, to invest in things, to care about things
for a long time. Yeah,
have a serious
play the long game,
right? And as I've said, love is unconditional investment, and it very sincerely seems to be the case that whatever factors have come into play, which again are in the self, they are not some evil secret society. Perhaps somebody at some point deliberately constructed some of these systems that are in play. Obviously, they're somebody made religion, for example. There are more than one example, but this is the primary example have been trying to set. Somebody invented and produced modern religion. And this person was playing the fucking long game. These people knew exactly what they were doing, but this has become like our very own Frankenstein's monster, and just nobody sees it anymore. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on.
I guess you could relate that to the environmental stuff too, is that instead of playing the long game, people have these short-term ideas about, well, it's just one glacier that melted, or well, we'll just dump our toxic waste into this lake, and if nobody else does it, then it's probably going to be fine. And you know, there's some weird like radioactive site of like that to dispose of radioactive chemicals somewhere down south, and it's like getting closer and closer to like a fault line, or there's some kind of thing going on like that. Yeah, that's like a thing. It's been going on for a long time, and people try to bring attention to it, and it's still nobody knows about it because it's not ever reported on, and it's that kind of stuff. It's long-term types of things that people don't even bother to think about, but then when somebody like Greta Thunberg pops up and says, what the hell are you guys doing, then you just get mad because she's whining, and that's it. Like, it's so weird, dude. We could have been smart about all of these things from the beginning and made sure to ensure the level of damage or whatever that these certain products were gonna, have generations later. And so when somebody like Greta Thunberg pops up and is, pissed about it, why are you getting mad at a 17-year-old girl? Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, by the way, the rationality rules did in fact go ahead and cemented that, yes, it is Thunberg. The correct pronunciation, Thunberg.
Yeah. Well, let's see what he thinks about
let's get
Greta.
deeper into this. I mean, this is effectively what it's accomplishing. It's serving to combat love itself. I mean, it's another value that is presenting this scenario wherein, and we have this anti-theistic approach, and I mean, most people are going to go ahead and make the statement that God is love. A lot of people have that idea, but I mean, it doesn't seem like anybody really comprehends it, and they certainly don't see what is happening in that regard. Like, God is love. The concept of God is an unconditional investment in the production and the perusal of this system, this systemic manifestation of our will at work, our ability to be creative and to implement our creative influence, and our relationship to life itself and to our environment, our relationship to ourselves, your own body. Your own body is a part of the living world. It's a part of the world. It is not what you are. It's something that you're interacting with, something you're influencing. And it's something that in most cases people don't seem to really even recognize as existing. Like, their own person is completely removed from the equation. It's very surreal kind of removal policy. The internet does serve to back that. However, I mean, it, for all intents and purposes, seems as though it was not. It was intended to provide us a means of connecting, a means of accessing each other, the world, our information stores.
Which I still think it serves that purpose.
Yes, it certainly does.
Absolutely.
And connects, connection.
Yep.
It is the most amazing technological advancement of all time. It is the most astounding potential tool that we are just using to continue backing this fucking crisis, that we're all fighting on behalf of the crisis. We're all trying to make it worse, and in most cases we don't even see it happening. We don't even know what we're doing.
Okay, you're rambling.
It's dramatically depressing.
Okay.
Your privately educated buddies would be surprised. But it's not the science that I'd like to talk about in this video. Rather, I'd like to discuss the utter failure of discourse around this topic. I'd like to explore the frustrations of and empathise with those who accept the science of human-induced climate change, but have not, and likely will not, change their behaviour accordingly. But before doing that, I'd like to quickly make a disclaimer. In the past, when I've shown two or more extreme views, I've been accused of committing a middle ground fallacy, but as is the case with those other subjects, is also the case here. I'm not implying that the answer is bang in the middle of these views. It's not. Rather, I'm emphasising that the answer is somewhere between the far-right libertarians who are convinced that it's their right to shit in your water supply, and the far-left Marxists who are also convinced that it's their right to shit in your water, because your water is their water. Put simply, I'm just trying to make the discourse a little more amicable. I want people to understand the concerns of others more accurately. I want people to be more empathetic towards one another, not to demonise them. I want to fight effectively against the uphill battle that is polarisation.
Yeah, good luck, pal. I mean, that's almost impossible to... Oh, you did it. Nice.
So, with that, I'm Stephen Woodford. Thanks for joining me, and this is When Facts Are Not Enough.
When facts are not enough. That's perfect.
Yeah, he's pretty damn good with his channel.
I like
At
it.
its core, climate change, and to what extent we are contributing, is strictly a scientific enterprise.
The absolute consensus is that human action is leading to an increase in average temperatures.
But the question of why people don't accept or act according to the evidence is multifaceted. It involves psychology, ideology, politics, education, economics, and privilege.
Just the routine privilege, Chief?
And within this video, I'm going to touch upon each of these. The most significant facets, at least in my opinion, are psychological, but we'll address them last since they're predicated upon other contributions, and thus will be easier to unpack later. Given this, let's begin with a criticism that's both straightforward and frequently given. That being that many climate activists are naive.
The fact that stopping economic development is even being advocated by some of the world's most privileged students. I don't want to use the name or the word spoiled, but that's what many outside these facilities may think.
I don't know what this clip is from. It looks like some kind of a college or school, but stopping economic progress? Who suggested that? That's not a thing. No one suggested that. No one suggested
it doesn't even fit the fucking
that we
bill.
should stop all economic progress to help improve the state of our natural environment and the nature that exists on this planet.
This is the sort of mentality that...
You just pulled that out of your ass.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You just totally pulled that out of your ass.
It's purely based on the mentality.
Yeah.
This is the sort of mentality wherein it's going to be much more reasonable for you to go ahead and spend $20 today than to earn $100 a week from now. It's like...
It's just...
You have no fucking...
The strategy involved with this kind of argument, when it comes to environmental stuff or political stuff or whatever the issue at hand is, the arguing, the dueling banjos that are constantly there, and the strategies that they use to argue with one another hurts my brain. Like, no one ever suggested to completely stop all of our economic progress.
No, but
You just made that up to scare people.
Yeah,
like,
you could definitely imply it in the sense that, you know, the majority of our economic progression here is going to be determined by what we are effectively stealing from the planet and you know, the fossil fuels and the factory industries and all that shit. I think the veganism thing with Ava Social, he brought up a point on that.
This technology is such in this day and age that you would not have to stop any kind of economic process.
No, well, that's what I mean. Is
to
that
help the environment. There are other options when it comes to
why don't we go ahead and
water
invest
and energy
in making
and different
natural
industries, right?
resources?
The technology is there, the ideas are there, the information is there, the science is there, but yet people like this guy talking at some college says that, well, we can't help the environment because it would stop all economic process. Is that what you want?
Right,
about
right.
the kind of comments we've heard
Oh
reveals how far removed this green bubble is from the harsh reality of billions of people who are desperately trying to escape poverty.
This is a diverse, a multifaceted world and undergoing rapid development, and people in Asia and in Africa want to have same living standards as is Sweden.
Put simply, many critics see many activists, and especially those with economic ideologies, as dangerously naive. They see them as essentially walking into impoverished countries and saying, hey, you know how we had the Industrial Revolution, and that because of it we are now a global superpower that's exploited you many times over? Yeah, well, you're not allowed that revolution. I know, you're just trying to cook that rat on a bonfire to feed your starving family, but you have to understand, you're robbing a Swedish child of her childhood, and that makes you a monster. This satire, of course, seems hyperbole, and to an extent it is, but it's also not. It is, after all, a paraphrase fusion of some of the top comments on Benny Peiser's speech. These critics argue that, as it stands, green energy sources are seldom viable to impoverished people, and if we hamstring such people by taxing sources that are viable to them, such as oil, gas and coal, which together constitute 87% of worldwide energy, we stand to cause the poor massive personal and economic harm. And furthermore, we stand to benefit the rich.
Just imagine who is reaping the hundreds of billions that are going into renewables. It's the landowners, it's the people who can afford solar panels, solar farms, biogas.
All of a sudden now you give fucks about a big industry making a bunch of money. So it's evil when a renewable energy corporation gets rich off of their industry, but it's cool if it's coal and oil.
Right. It comes back to that instant gratification concept wherein this dude, he cares about what is appealing to him. Investing in natural, renewable resources and shit, that might outlive him. Like, it might take a little longer than would be applicable to his, what he can gain from it.
It's just so fake. It's such a fake thing to say, oh, this corporation is going to get rich off of, renewable energy, and it's just big business, and it's bad, and they're corrupt.
We can't do that because
we already have.
It will halt our economic progress.
Right, like this dude gives a fuck at all.
It's those people who can afford all this green stuff paid by ordinary families, by poor families, who are forced to pay the rich for their virtual signaling.
But to get back on track...
I'm sorry, what the fuck does that mean?
Dude, people already live paycheck to paycheck because they're giving their money to super rich corporations.
Right, I mean, if this is such a concern, why don't we try addressing it?
That's so funny.
How the fuck are you gonna stand there on stage like you're ripping people off, man?
He's so worried about poor families and working class families. He really is. I don't know who this dude is, but we'll try to find the link in description.
Point being is that many find climate ideologues to be naive, and whether you share this view or not, it's at least healthy to understand why others have this perspective. A second criticism of note, which is in part an extension of naivety, is that climate change is a first world privilege problem. To be clear, those who state this are not saying that climate change will only affect first world countries, but rather that only affluent social classes can afford to take the threat seriously. For example, here's how Brendan O'Neill puts it.
I actually think it's morally repugnant that in a world in which 3 billion people still live in poverty, the discussion that is obsessing privileged, mostly white Westerners is how can we slow down economic growth.
Now, the goal of climate activists is not, of course, to slow down economic growth, and Brendan knows this. He's just employing some good old British sarcasm. And yeah, that's right, it's ours. We invented sarcasm. We trademarked it, just as we trademarked the oil in many countries. Anyhow, here's Jordan Peterson expressing the same sentiment.
Except the data that I've read indicate that if you can get the GDP of people up to about $5,000 a year, then they start caring about the environment, and the environment cleans up.
The argument that's being presented, more than less, is that we need to spend money to make money. We need to produce more CO2 in order to ultimately reduce our production of CO2. Now, whether you endorse this argument or not, there is indeed data to support it. While people, including my former self, drastically underestimate how much the poor care about the environment, the poor do statistically care less than other classes. And from a psychological perspective, this isn't a surprise. If one's physiological and safety needs are not met, one can't afford to care about such concerns.
Maybe
no fucking shit.
Yeah, maybe it is. It's just in the line of immediate problems, or
It is.
in the
And again, it's reinforcing this instant gratification
of shit you need to deal with day to day. A poor family that's trying to make ends meet, so to speak, would have the concern for environment and solar panels and renewable energy would kind of be later on that list because they're just trying to eat and survive.
Right. And
So it would make sense, but they put forth this information almost as if it's like, well, poor people don't give a shit. Like, I'm sure they do, right? It's just there's immediate problems that come kind of before that one when you're trying to make sure that your kids are eating and getting educated. That's first and foremost.
And you know, it's really confusing here. It's difficult to say because it's gonna be like I'm poor. I run into people who are poor. You know, we care. We certainly don't reject this.
Plenty of people that care that don't have a lot of money.
People who have children, I think in my experience, I can't say this for certain, this is what I observe in my personal experience, people who have children, because they are invested in those children long term, are going to be more likely to work towards
Having
the
a healthier
instant
natural
gratification and not be so invested in working towards the long term. It's like an odd trick that's being played.
You'd
where,
think it would be the other way around.
Right. It should be, logically speaking. But
it makes sense.
It makes sense. It is
when
logical
you're
in the sense that you're prioritizing
your needs and your safety first before being able to
care for your children.
Again, like I told you earlier, you're not going to be of benefit to any other people if you don't take care of yourself.
I know, like, I'm in shit shape right now, and I feel crappy now. Like, I was excited about the video and stuff, like, I was happy to do this, and then it's just like, I don't know, maybe we waited too long or something, but I was at a loss for a way to adequately describe what I needed to quickly and respond. Yeah, well, obviously I was unable to do it quickly, and that just led into me slumping.
That could have been a whole other video, dude.
It should have been a whole other video, but I'm not allowed to make it.
Then just shut up about
I'll
it.
do whatever the fuck I want to. Thank you. You can kiss my ass. Honestly.
Anyways, it makes sense that people are going to prioritize their safety and needs first and foremost before worrying about the state of the much larger picture and population as a whole. So when people say, well, the environment is a privileged problem that only rich people can worry about, that it kind of is true, but not in the way that you would think when it's put across in such a fucking weird manner. Like, you know, it's so tricky.
I know, and I feel like it's deliberately tricky.
Again, a response to this might be, bro, green energy is actually more viable to invest in, especially given the long run. And a reply to this might be, yes, but brosive, the truly poor won't have a long run if they invest in green energy. And then a reply to this might be, bro, seriously, my dad would beat the absolute crap out of your dad.
You stole my childhood.
No.
But the underlining, very serious problem here is that we don't have time to test this hypothesis. We only have one world. The apocalyptic claim of the world ending in 12 years is no doubt ridiculous, but if our data and interpretations are correct, that is, if the vast majority of our scientists are correct, another 12 years of apathy may just push us beyond a safe return. We do have to take this very seriously, and at the moment, most of us don't. Moving on, a third criticism that's given by many critics is that many climate activists are hypocritical, and often insufferably so.
Lambasting the youth of the world for lassoing themselves to these protest marches and Greta and so on, and then immediately going back to their laptops, their iPads, their iPhones, their air-conditioned schoolrooms, their bathrooms, you know, and so on and so on, that their mums take to school.
So you shouldn't use a cell phone or have air conditioning in your school if you truly cared about the environment.
Yeah, and which is ultimately because we don't give a fuck about the environment enough to prioritize it over fucking money and greed and political venture.
I like how he uses school. This is a piece from some kind of
Right, let's appeal to the children factor again.
Good Morning Britain, it looks like. It's a school is where children go to be educated, but they shouldn't have air conditioning.
Right. And they certainly shouldn't be properly educated.
That was your example, not a mall, you know? A school.
We don't have malls anymore, you know?
A school, that's funny.
I'll tell you what, I feel like I'm being ripped off. That's gonna be a primary factor here. I'm angry now.
School in nice gas-guzzling cars.
In other words, many critics see many activists talking a good game, but when push comes to shove, the activists themselves don't even practice the principles they're trying to force upon others. To illustrate this, take, for example, the following clip from Earthling Ed's channel. Ed is a vegan activist, and he recently attended a climate change protest in London to encourage climate activists to go vegan. He began by asking them how they can reduce their emissions.
Name some ways that we can reduce emissions. Well, that's for the government, you know, we're just here to protest. They figured out, they got a scientist.
And after a bit of back and forth, the activist gave some great responses, such as cutting subsidies for fossil fuels.
Electric cars.
Electric cars?
Yeah.
Plastic! Yes, plastic. Yeah. Dubliter.
Charity shops.
Yeah.
There we go.
Second-hand clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second-hand clothing. What else?
Skims, there it
Turn the lights on. What about what we eat?
Go vegan.
Just kidding. I love me. I could never. I love food. I love the environment, but I don't love the environment that much.
Ed then went on to explain, with more patience than a few civilizations, that if one wants to reduce their carbon footprint, then a surefire way of doing so is to reduce one's consumption of animal products. But the activist's response was as indifferent as many critics are to foregoing fossil fuels.
Do you think the taste of something is worth the destruction it causes?
I think he's totally overdoing it with calling these kids activists. Like, they might be present at some kind of rally or a protest or an event or whatever, but it looks like a bunch of high school kids. So I don't know if I would really put them under the umbrella of being activists per se. They are kids, it looks like, who are kind of being silly and joking around while they're being interviewed by somebody.
And, I mean, I think one of the defining characteristics of being activist is kind of like caring about your cause.
Yeah, I think they're just I don't know if this group of 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 dudes and a chick are, I don't know if I would put them under the umbrella of being activists per se.
That's it too, though, right?
Yes.
I'll be dead one day.
So why are you here with that logic then?
We're on the way to Subway, actually.
To do a vegan sandwich in Subway?
Yeah, but it's not as good as the steak and cheese.
What about the environmental impact?
Well, the steak and cheese is already there, so, I mean, me not eating it isn't going to stop them.
But so is the plastic and the shells and the diesel in the cars.
Now, it's important to note, as Ed himself did, that one doesn't need to be vegan to care about the environment. That would be a form of purity testing, or no true Scotsman. However, the attitude of these activists is hypocritical. They couldn't come across as more disingenuous if they wanted to.
And when you're in Subway, try the vegan sandwich. You never know. You never know.
I will not do that, but thank you for the suggestion.
Well, the environment is crying over that decision.
It
See you
seems
later,
to be
guys.
this one certain kid in the yellow
I'm
shirt.
really sorry.
I'm sorry.
I love me.
If the activists had admitted their hypocrisy, but conveyed that doing something is better than doing nothing, then they could be taken more seriously. But when they fervently campaign against polluting industries and practices that they don't personally use on a daily basis, but callously defend polluting industries and practices that they personally do use on a daily basis, they come across as aggravatingly hypocritical. Couple this with the fact that most
I care about the environment, and that was aggravating a little bit to watch. But
That
it's a
dude-
fucking kid, dude. It's a high school kid that just showed up at some rally talking about how much he loves Subway steak and cheese sandwiches. Like,
I gotta be honest though. I mean, had I been in the vicinity of that, like had I witnessed that transpiring, I can't. It'd be difficult for me to promise that I might not have hit that fucking kid.
Again, it's a kid.
Yeah, but you really,
It's
if
a
you're gonna
kid.
be that fucking stupid, why don't you just keep it to yourself? Sorry.
Because people can't help themselves. But with any other show where people are walking around with a microphone, putting it in people's faces, I'm sure that guy stuck his microphone in the faces of some actual people that genuinely care that day. And it's just, it's not popping.
Who is that guy?
You know what I mean? He said the name of the guy. I can't remember what it was.
He's a dude. We watch that show that he does.
What show?
He's an odd hippie dude who does all those weird, kind of.
Earthling Ed. That's who he said it was. Earthling Ed.
Earthling Ed. No, that must be somebody who looks like precisely like somebody else I'm thinking of.
Yeah, he said it was Earthling Ed. Was a guy that was interviewing people apparently at some kind of event for the environment or rally or whatever. And in a group of maybe 5 or 6 kids and a chick who are young, look like kind of high school students. It was one fucking dumb kid who basically was the entirety of what he's saying, hypocritical, ingenuine
And this
kid,
this
you know?
serves
He was
to.
being a dick or whatever.
This is the sort of thing that, very ironically, I suppose you could say, serves to back up this debate rhetoric mechanism, this protocol that the atheist YouTubers seem to adopt, wherein they've got all these, like, the no true Scotsman fallacy and the scarecrow, or it's not a scarecrow, what is it called? A straw man.
Straw man,
and all that shit.
That's a term. It's
I
a
know
thing.
it's a term, but it's like,
It's like a thing.
he's
It's
gonna
like a-
he's
it's like
gonna
a
prop up this one dude
Strategy.
as a definable example.
Would you stop putting your hand in front of my fucking head?
He's gonna put up this one example, or this one kid, stupid kid, as the example to prove the point via his debate rhetoric mechanics, wherein that is like a straw man in and of itself.
No, all he's saying is that it works against the cause of the environmentalists and environmental activists when shit like that pops up.
Right.
And it serves to basically paint everyone with that broad brush of being a hypocritical, ingenuous high school kid. apparently. Disingenuous.
Most of them enjoy central heating, air conditioning, hot baths, the latest clothing accessories, a new iPhone every year, Amazon Prime, and high-speed internet, and the hypocrisy becomes insufferable. Why should someone forego their gas-guzzling truck, something that they enjoy on a daily basis, if these privileged teens won't forego a bit of meat, something that they enjoy on a daily basis? Now, a reply to this, which I think is fair, is that these teens don't represent the climate movement, and the fact that critics treat them as if they do is little more than a straw man fallacy. And in reply to this, some critics will say, bro, the same is true of their leaders, just to a less extent. They're hypocrites. And then some activists might reply, bro, even my mum could beat up your dad, and we go back to shitopia.
You stole my childhood.
And last but not least, let's talk psychology. The YouTube channel, It's Okay to Be Smart, has an excellent video dedicated to this very topic, titled Why People Don't Believe in Climate Science, and honestly, I could just leave a link to that video and be done. But I want to emphasize many of the same points and add a few of my own. Al Gore famously titled his 2006 climate change documentary An Inconvenient Truth, and in my opinion, it's a perfect title. Climate change is an inconvenient truth because we are utterly unequipped to confront it. We evolved on the plains of Africa, dealing with immediate personal threats, and so we are not hardwired to deal with threats that we ourselves won't endure. We are, in fact, wired to dismiss these threats. We are wired for hyperbolic discounting. As George Marshall, Daniel Kahneman, and many others have emphasized, in our desire to avoid the anxiety that climate change generates, we actively conspire with one another and mobilize our own biases to keep it perpetually in the background. Our optimism bias comforts us with the delusion that climate change won't affect us or our progeny, just others. Our tribalistic tendencies, our need for social acceptance, want us not to rock the boat and risk ostracization. Our bias towards the status quo and fear of change prevent us from innovation. And to protect our cherished ideologies, we so easily endorse headlines that confirm our presuppositions and demonize and conflate those that don't. Or as Joe Hansen puts it,
climate change is almost the perfect problem. We've got to do something about it, but every one of its attributes goes against our psychology. It's like that black cloud from Lost. It has no identity, no home, no single cause, and no single solution. It's about more than science. It involves economics, morals, human rights, ideology, technology. It's really hard.
Anyhow, in conclusion, my dad would definitely beat up your dad. Childish humour aside, I hope that whatever your views on climate change are, and the politics that surround it, you walk away from this video with a bit more empathy for those who don't share your views. Now, don't get me wrong, there are nutters on both sides, well, more on one side than the other, and I'll let your cognitive bias assume which I'm referring to. And yes, these people are pretty much untouchable. They're convinced, and that's that. They're essentially variations of the Bible bashers who proudly state that if the Bible says so, it's so. But most people are not like that, and in this day and age of echo chambers and outrage, we are in desperate need for amicable discourse.
That's another thing that I think people get so up in arms and such a fear response when the extremists on either side or whatever tend to overshout and overcome that I think most people are not extremists. So that's the very meaning of the word extreme, is that that's a small percentage. I think most people would be okay sitting down and discussing things, or even opening their mind and opinion for a moment to consider the thoughts coming from their, the opinions that they don't believe in. I don't think that most people are extremists, and I feel like people get this, they're walking around like you said, my brother, he's walking around thinking that the extremists are the norm across the board, that most people are like that, and it's in the word. It's in the word itself. It's extreme because it's a small percentage of people, and I don't know, it's such a fear response, and it's so easily overcome everybody that everyone's just walking around in this constant fear state
Yeah.
Where they're afraid that, you know,
Exactly.
if you say something that doesn't agree with their opinion or that doesn't line up with their train of thought or their ideals, then it's like the end of the fucking world. It's crazy, but
it's going to lead to the end of the world if you don't snap the fuck out of it.
I don't know where that 12-year number came from. I never saw that clip before, but wow, it seems a little bit, again, extreme. Like, I don't think most people belong in the group of
he said that he believes that you know, if we don't turn it around within 12 years, he believes it'll be past a certain limit, you know, hitting a point where we may not be able to turn it around. I'd have pegged
it depends on the study and who you ask. There's some science that says that we've already hit that point.
I'd have pegged it at like 3 years. Really? In my opinion,
I don't know.
That's what I'm working towards.
I don't know
get this
if you
turned
can
around
pinpoint
within these next 3 years.
to the exact year. Like I said, it depends on who you're asking. It could be that we've already passed that point of no return when it comes to certain issues like the ocean levels rising and the temperature and that kind of stuff. There's different schools of thought. The point is that it shouldn't be such a contentious issue when it would benefit everyone and it damages everyone. So why is it become this dueling banjos situation? It's very weird.
And again, you can't pin it down to one factor or another. It's going to be, as we've already discussed, it's going to be the corrupted values or factors present in each of those catalyst events. Like currency has greed, and that's affecting all the others. Religion, obviously. Religion, I'd say, is a corruptive element of the spiritual faculty. And I mean, what would help? I mean, it's right there. He already gave you the answer. It's in your psychology. You are wired to feel this way. You're wired to address things in this manner. Now, can you alter your wiring, your programming, or are you able to do that? Do you have the option to do that? Because
That's a good question.
I do. So
I feel like if people are already thinking that they can't change their own mind, then how could they possibly think that they could change or alter or evolve their own instincts?
And right therein is the value to the age-old consideration that the ability to change the world is the ability to change your own mind. It's because that, in fact, affords you that value, that allows for you to make that decision. It opens up the potentiality to you if you can manage to control your own mind, if you can manage to change your own mind. And I mean, there are easy fucking ways to go about doing it. Like, for example, what is something that the elder traditions were attempting to present to us? The concept of reincarnation. Where does that place you? It places you in
a whole new life.
The danger of that scenario that you believe is so far away you're not going to see it. Yeah, you are going to see it. At least that's the thought that was being presented there. That's the value that's being put into play, that yes, it would be beneficial for you personally to be concerned about the distant future. And it is, because it doesn't fucking matter who you are, whether you even have kids or not. There are pieces of you running around. People who have children, they're effectively passing on their lineage. People who don't have children, well, somebody else already did it for them. There are pieces of you that are going to be there. Can you manage to care about them enough? I should like to note, before it's too late, this video is officially endorsed by gelatin.
Dinosaur shaped.
No, I can't say that. Not specifically dinosaur shaped. It's gelatin.
It's shaped like a dinosaur.
That one's shaped like a shark.
A dinosaur shark. A mega, what are those called? The giant dinosaur sharks?
Nobody believes in dinosaurs.
They made a movie about it, the Megalodon or whatever. You just ate it. You ate the Megalodon.
Nobody fucking believes in sharks or dinosaurs' cheeks. You need to get your head in the game.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Sharks should all die. No one cares about that.
Nobody will eat lobster anymore.
What about our economic progress?
We need to preserve democracy.
The whole ocean could just die tomorrow and we're going to be fine. Isn't that what that other guy said?
Yep.
We'll be fine.
Nobody will eat lobster.
What's the worst that could happen? That is so funny. Oh, man.
So, yeah, I guess our beat, my beat, I apologize for being in poor form this time, guys. But, I mean, really, that's what needs saying, is that you, again, over and over again, I'll keep saying it, you own your life.
Stop. Oh, I thought you were going to start talking about
You are the
other
owner of this life.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, talk about him. Don't let your fucking anxieties control you. You control them. And you can make so fucking much powerful use of those anxieties if you just manage to alert yourself to the fact that, in fact, it's your decision to make. You can control yourself. You can change your mind. All you guys out there, you got to stop letting I don't know, like, I keep saying social programming. I'm not sure if people are really comprehending what that means. Like, when you run into things such as fucking peer pressure, community pressures.
Well, that boils down to a certain amount of personal, courage, right? To be able to sidestep when everyone's got their eyeballs on you and expecting a certain outcome.
Right, so, I mean, I don't know, I guess, if somebody presents elevated expectations of you, perhaps it could be because they believe in you, they have faith in you, if somebody, nobody really, I don't recall people ever really having placed that sort of faith in me throughout my earlier developments, like my spotter did, and that was very impressive of her, and in turn I was impressive for her, and I feel like that's something that's so beneficial to me at least, is that
for sure.
I feel like when somebody counts on me to deliver in some higher capacity, it thereby becomes not merely a duty to me, but it becomes an opportunity, a challenge and an opportunity that is at the very least to be addressed, and it's even if I don't, even if I can't follow through on it or come through on it,
taking the risk is what
fighting
matters.
for it is be a fucking fighter, man. I don't want, I'm really hesitant to kind of address ourselves as being activists. That's kind of what we're presenting as, in a manner of speaking, but
use that word.
I mean, it's firstly, it's going to be difficult to say that sort of thing when your activism is on behalf of everything and everyone, aside from maybe child prostitution and pedophiles in the fucking pedophile community. But I mean, there are very few things that we're not supportive or promotional of or for. I mean,
I wouldn't refer to myself as an activist.
So yeah, that's a difficult assessment to make. That's not really a useful label.
It doesn't fucking matter.
But we are taking action as regards our particular cause.
I admire people that take up the activism type of role with regards to whatever issue. It doesn't matter what it is, even if I disagree with it. I think it's a very brave type of thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, it should be an admirable...
To jump into that fucking pool, that's a really crazy...
It should certainly be regarded an admirable function, although as with everything else that actually matters, it's been sabotaged to some degree.
Yeah. But I'd like to think that people can see through the bullshit.
You'd love to think that, wouldn't you?
Anyways,
there are people who do see through the bullshit. It'd be a good idea for you to take a chance on working with them. Everybody out there, everybody watching. Again, I sucked and I'm recovering. I'll do better the very next time. I'll do my follow-up to our string of videos here. Rationality rules. He's cool. He's good in our book. I'm not gonna fucking naysay him. He does present some odd tells, and he may have been involved in some strange circumstances, but I don't blame the guy. And
well, I liked that particular video.
He's a cool guy. He's just, like, as I was saying about the reincarnation, it's an easy measure by which to redefine your outlook, and a lot for you to have, applications that afford you the ability to give a fuck about things that are going to matter a while away from now. It ultimately doesn't fucking matter if you can prove whether it's true or not scientifically. This is a matter of dealing with our psychology, our psychological environment. In what ways can we implement our control over our psychological faculties?
In many, many ways.
So, if it's useful, make use of it. Be effective.
Okay. I think it's time to end this video, dude.
It's on keyless alive, people. I think. That may not be applicable to this video.
Thanks for putting up with him.
Yeah. Fuck you, man. Namaste.
Mwah!